This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. Broadcasting 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, Studio A. Information's on the website. And there's a link to all of your instructors at USAPrepares.com. Matt's engineering the broadcast. And converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us from the left coast, the west coast. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hey, Rick, I've got a clip I'd like to play. Let me just introduce this for a few seconds. One of our friends is a high school principal in Lebanon, Missouri, and I know this man fairly well. His name is Kevin Lowry. Kevin Lowry is a brilliant principal. He was principal of the year in Missouri. And it's because he does some really neat things. He's way outside the box. As a matter of fact, when he talks to his teachers, even publicly, he will say that it is your responsibility to provide the best education possible for our students. And if they don't learn, and you haven't figured out a way to teach them, it's your fault. And he does not allow excuses from anyone for any reason. So, the dog ate the homework, that doesn't fly. Teachers can't make excuses why children don't learn. And he is really on top of his game. And let me give you an example. He was the principal where one of our children attended high school. Our son had never been in school before, and he decided that he wanted to try high school, see what it's like. So first time he's in school is in high school, and he was in a school where the superintendent was really interested in her own personal growth, and it didn't appear to me that she was interested in the education of the children, at least not the way I thought she should be. So we decided to take our child out of that school and find another school. And the school we found was Lebanon High School. And that's the same place where we have the Get Prepared Expo. And it's an absolutely awesome small community of about 20,000 people. So it's a small community. But at Lebanon High School, our son was interested in auto mechanics. I taught him auto mechanics, and we have an automotive lift here at the farm. And so he's been involved with auto mechanics for a long time. Well, at Lebanon High School, they have a full automotive shop. They've got a lift, and they've got the ability to rebuild transmissions and engines, and they do a lot of neat stuff. Well, our son and a few of his fellow classmates asked their teacher, their shop teacher, if they could do something a little outside the box, like build a race car and race it. And the teacher said, well, it takes money. And so they planned how they could get $1,500 to buy a used Japanese car, an old Japanese car, like a Corolla, Toyota Corolla, with a manual transmission. And it had a bad transmission, so they had to rebuild the transmission. The engine was fair, but they had to swap the head on it, put a different head on it, and do a valve job on it. And so the students learned how to do that. And they decided that there's a racetrack in Lebanon, And it has some real sharp curves. And what they decided to do was, instead of trying to build more horsepower and make the car go faster that way, they decided that they would take a different angle. They would change the suspension because of the type of track that they would be racing on. They could make the car taller on one side from the other side. And they would change the camber so that the camber, the angle that the wheels tilt in and out, would change depending on the curve, whether it was a left curve or a right curve. And it was absolutely brilliant. And they won every race. And they didn't have the best engine. And it was the coolest thing. So the students actually learned about physics. So the guy who was the principal, who said, yeah, you know what, I think that's a good idea, let's do it. And of course, are there risks involved? Well, yeah, so they said, okay, only the teacher's going to race the car. And they were able to get the school board to appropriate $1,500. And the students went to the automotive supply companies, and they say, hey, you know, we need some hoses and we need this. And they were able to get donations from all of the automotive supply companies like O'Reilly's. And it was really cool. So they all worked together to build this race car, and everybody won. Well, on May 23rd of this year, Kevin Lowry had a commencement address to the students, and it was in the Cowan Civic Center, the same place where we hold the Get Prepared Expo. And this address has gotten national attention because Kevin Lowry decided he would do the absolute unthinkable thing. He would talk about God. God. In a public school ceremony. In the public. Absolutely unthinkable. I'm going to play it. It's 3 minutes, 34 seconds. And I'm going to be quiet during this. And here we go.
Important line of all. One nation under God. In fact, I would like to remind our graduates that our nation's motto is, in fact, in God we trust. If you're ever in doubt, just take a quick look at our nation's currency, and you'll find out for yourself. A similar phrase appears in the final stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner, written in 1814 by Francis Scott Key, and later adopted as the U.S. national anthem on March 3rd, 1931 by U.S. President Herbert Hoover. The song contains an early reference to a variation of this phrase, and this be our motto: in God is our trust. And one of the most famous sentences in the American history, taken from our Declaration of Independence, reads, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." This passage has come to represent a moral standard to which the United States should always strive. And even though God is reflected in the very fabric of our nation, we are told that it is inappropriate and even illegal to mention God at high school graduations, let alone say a prayer. So while it would not be politically correct for us to have an official prayer this evening, I would like for us to have a moment of silence in honor of tonight's graduates. Thank you. And just in case you're interested, during my moment of silence, I gave thanks to God for these great students, their parents, their teachers, and for this community. Well, I'm not finished. I ask God to protect these students as they go their separate ways into the world. I ask God to avail himself in every possible way. And I ask God to watch over them, to protect them, and to bless them with self-fulfillment, with compassion, inner peace, and personal prosperity. Thank you for indulging the thoughts I had during my moment of silence. And yes, God is still important, and let us not ever forget it.
So there you have it. That gave me chills, just thinking about this man standing up publicly and saying no to the government. Saying no, you can't tell us that we can't say God, whether it's politically incorrect or not. So, class, all of you out there, run for school board, run for office, and let's make a difference. And let's say no when we believe that it's right to say no. Rick, what were your thoughts?
Well, that's why our country was founded, was freedom of religion. And, while atheism is a form of religion, if you will, all the other forms have their rights also. And just because one group doesn't want the Jews to speak, or the Catholics to speak, or the Protestants to speak, or the atheists to speak, that's what we had in making us different than Europe.
Rick, one of the things that I've noticed about USA Prepares and our instructors and our students, we don't seem to think it makes a difference what a person believes. But we did find that there is a universal belief that we all have. We have some Jews in our instructional staff. And, when we say prayers, like if we have a prayer before a meeting or before a meal, whether it's at the farm or at a restaurant, they're all the same. They're all the same. The only thing that might be different is the word Jesus is left out in a Jewish prayer. But otherwise, it's thanks, whether I say it or one of our students or one of our instructors. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, I'll be right back in just a couple minutes. So I just got off the phone with Lebanon High School during the break, and I invited Kevin Lowry, the principal, to be on the air with us. And Rick, this school has such pride, such community involvement. I've never seen anything like it, literally. So let me give you an example.
Well, that's rural America. And I wanted to say one thing before you did this. When you pray at dinner or, for your meal, what you are doing is what a motto would suggest in the structuring of the water. That's why the Catholics did it, to kill vampires. That's why you say grace at dinner. It changes the food and the way your body assumes it. And we can talk further about that today on what we call easy water and the intentionality experiment. This is a new concept in physics that is now having validation mathematically on how it works. The idea of actual intentionality of saying thanks for your food makes a difference.
Well, and I believe it does. I believe it brings, even if it didn't have the effect of changing the food physically, I believe there are other benefits as well, like bringing the family closer together in prayer. And that's what we like to do. I know that it's probably politically incorrect to say grace at a restaurant, but I'll tell you what, it happens every Monday night at Ziggy's. And you know what? I'm thinking about making a change. I'm thinking about, here's what happens at Ziggy's. We show up at different times. I get there around 5:30, sometimes earlier, sometimes a few minutes later, and we start the seminars at 6. Well, people, because it's impossible for the wait staff to serve a whole restaurant full of people simultaneously, people order when they get there. And, some start eating earlier and some start eating later, and we eat during the seminars. And, it's not like it's impolite. It's just the way it is. I'm thinking that we should have a prayer, regardless of whether we've already started our food or not, early, and have a prayer. And it's not going to cover all the plates of food because they won't all be served at the same time. But I'm thinking that's something we should do. So I've got that on my
Or
list.
giving thanks for the group. You realize we don't have anything like that in Grants Pass. We have, the truck stop diners where all the good old boys have breakfast every morning. But
Right.
we don't have anything like Ziggy's. I think it's very, very cool. I wish we were more like the Midwest in some of our values.
Okay. Well, let me tell you this. And the reason I'm not doing this to brag about where we live, the reason I'm saying this is because I think it's the way it used to be. I'm thinking it's kind of like Mayberry RFD. I think it's kind of like Andy Griffith. And we are kind of old-fashioned where we live. And so at the high school prom, it's a community event. So when the high school has prom night, the preparation that goes into it is weeks and weeks in advance. And here's what happens. I'm going to call it a car show. So the parents, the relatives, somebody's got a neat car in the family, or a horse-drawn buggy, or a hearse, or a 1968 Camaro, or a Mustang, or a tractor trailer, or even President Truman's limousine. Literally, I'm not exaggerating.
All of it, yes.
Yes, and these vehicles will line up for a half a mile easily.
That's very cool.
Easily to the same entrance that we use when we go to the expo. And parents, like I volunteered to be a parent, and the students will either be driven by someone, a driver, let's say their father or someone in the family, as a chauffeur, and the couple would be in the back seat, or the couple would drive the vehicle themselves, and they'd pull up to the entrance to the Cowan Civic Center. The door would be opened for them by the volunteer parents, and then we would park the vehicles. And it was really neat. And when it came to some of the old muscle cars, some of the younger fathers would say, "Oh man, that's really cool. I wish I knew how to drive one of those. Hey, who knows how to drive a stick?" And that was really cool for me because I got to drive some really cool cars. But that's the community involvement. And you can do it too where you live. We'll be right back. So class, we're talking about Kevin Lowry, principal of Lebanon High School, and how he does things that are just way, way extraordinary. And so the after prom party that the students attend is an unbelievable event. I was there. I was there as a volunteer parent several years ago. Mrs. Finelli was there, and our son was there. And what they do is they say to the students, "I'll tell you what, we don't want you getting hurt doing stupid things. So if you'll come to the after prom party, there will be all kinds of events, and we're going to give you some gifts. But you have to be locked in. You can't leave." And so, with permission from the parents and the students, they just about all of them decide to do this. And the gifts are unbelievable. I called the Casey's General Store, and I told them that I was involved, and I happen to know the chief financial officer, and he sent me 10 gas gift cards and 10 pizza gift cards. So I was able to do that, and I just made one phone call, and that was before I was on the radio, and so I didn't have any connections, and that was just one of the gifts. But the merchants in town will say, I've got a few TVs. Would that be okay? They had televisions. They had a canoe, a fully equipped canoe. They had all the merchants, almost all the merchants in town, decided to provide food. I'm talking about a Chinese buffet plus a pizza buffet of every kind of pizza you could think of, fruit, juices. I mean, there was more food than could be eaten by these students. Everything you could possibly think of. And it's all provided absolutely free by by the community. So here we have a rural community that thinks that graduation is really important. They think that the safety of their children is really important. They know children do some dumb things, and they want to minimize that as much as possible. And so that's what they do at Lebanon High School. And I suggest that wherever your children go to school, if they go to school, that you get involved with the school and help them do things like this, where they work as a community. Because if we don't stick together, we're going to perish. So those are my thoughts about rural living and Kevin Lowry. And Rick, speaking of rural living, I've noticed recently that when I compare what I see to 8 years ago, when I moved to the farm, a marked decrease in the number of birds. You know, we used to see birds on the power lines, resting on the power lines. You know, they'd stop in flight and they'd take a break, and you'd see them all the time. I don't see them anymore. And those nuisance bugs that we used to have, I don't see very many of them either. And we used to have armadillos here, like they were a nuisance, digging holes in the fields, and the cows would step in the holes and hurt their legs, and I don't see very many of them. There's one down the road from us that's been upside down, dead for about a week, but that's the first one I've seen in quite a while. And the frogs, remember when it used to rain, the frogs would be out on the road? I don't see them very much anymore. And wild turkeys. My mom said, "Hey, Vinny, there's a turkey." It was like, it was a spectacle, because we used to have hundreds of turkeys per year that we could count on the farm. Now it's one. And deer, we used to have about, let's say at least 20 living on the farm at any point in time. I don't see them anymore. And the wild dogs that we used to hear.
Chris, you couldn't say this, but I'm asking a question now. We've had clear skies, no clouds for 4 days, and not a single chemtrail. Now, I don't think that you can see that, because you've had rain and you've had overcast and things like that. Has anybody else noticed? I see a jet going across the sky right now, and it's got a contrail. That means that the actual tail of it is only, maybe it dissipates right with, as the jet is moving across. It's a contrail. It's not a chemtrail. We have not had chemtrails here in almost a full week. What's going on? Does anybody know anything about that part of things?
Rick, I don't have the answer to that, but here's what I can say. It has rained every day here at some amount, except for one day for 14 days. Every day.
That's incredible. There's no rain here. Our water table on the West Coast is so bad that now we have been declared an emergency up here in Josephine County, where I live. California is in a world of hurt, and all of this is directly related to this last year's efforts with chemtrails or geoengineering. They are controlling the weather, and I'm wondering to what extent and why and what the collateral damage is going to be around it.
Well, Rick,
you talked about your birds. That might be part of the vector.
Rick, I think that is the collateral damage, and that's why I'm talking about it, because as a farmer, I see this. So even the wild dogs, Rick, we used to have, we had the balance of nature, and there were wild dogs that would be in the woods, and they would hang out, and they would look for prey, and you'd hear them at night when they would howl and call each other, and you hardly hear that anymore. And the mice, we have a couple mice, but nothing like what we used to have. And squirrels. The reason I'm mentioning each one of these animals is because I'm trying to let our class realize that as they're probably thinking, you know what? We don't have squirrels either. And where did the deer go? And where are the frogs after that?
In Oregon. I can't believe that part. We have animals here. In fact, the birds are putting out more than ever. That tells me it's going to be a nice, warm, hot summer.
Really? Because we don't have them here. And,
I know. There is something else going on, and I don't have the answers to it yet.
Rick, let me share this. You asked about the chemtrails. I've been traveling around the Ozark Mountains in the daily course of what I do. And I've noticed that there's just like one farm where hay was cut, one. And the farmer cut the hay thinking that he would have enough time to bale the hay, rake it and bale it. And he didn't. So the hay is still on the ground. That's one farm out of all the farms. So we're sitting with our winter hay crop, still growing, getting tougher by the second. And I'm concerned that the cows are not going to be able to eat it because it's getting tougher and taller. It's already gone to seed. The clover's gone to seed. And we need 3 days of no rain for the ground to dry out. And the reason for that is when we cut the hay, that the grass will lay on the ground. And if there's moisture in the ground, it will come up into the hay, and the hay won't dry out. So we need 3 days of no rain for the ground to be dry. Then we need a day to cut the hay, a day to rake the hay, and a day to bale the hay. So we need 6 days of no rain, and there's nothing in sight. The weather forecast is another week of rain. And we're all of us farmers in this area are in the same boat. Now, I've asked at the meetup at Ziggy's last Monday, I talk about chemtrails. It's not just here; it's everywhere in the Ozark Mountains, because people that come to the meetups generally are from within 100-mile radius of Ziggy's. Generally, they come from farther. They come from other states too if they're in the area, but generally within 100 miles, and they're saying the same things: chemtrails, chemtrails, chemtrails. So, 80 degrees today, Rick. I'm sorry, 80 degrees is the new 95. That's my terminology. 80 degrees is unbearable now. Where it used to be 95, you'd say it's pretty hot at 95. 80 was okay because 70 is where we'd prefer to be at 70 degrees. But 80's okay, but not anymore. 80 is unbearable because of the humidity here.
Yeah.
It's so hot.
It's happening across America.
Rick,
I just posted something about a temperature rise in Kansas also on Facebook. In one night, I think it was on the 4th, the temperature in the evening rose 10 degrees and then went back again as a strange weather anomaly.
Mm-hmm. Rick, you want to talk about the Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center, and then we'll get into water?
Well, I sent you those links. You should post them. There is radiation outbreaks everywhere in America right now. Their alerts are going off everywhere, and I don't know what that all means yet, except that the usual suspect places where they're going are where there are nuclear reactors, like in New Mexico and Washington State. All around, I think all of the nuclear reactors are now starting to leak.
That's a really good point, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm within a percent or two. There are about 104 nuclear reactors in the United States. And how can they not leak, Rick? How is it possible that a nuclear reactor could not leak radioactivity?
Well,
I don't think it's possible.
The bad news is every single one of them is over 20 years old. They need to be refurbished and shut down.
Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at the map. I'll post it during the next break so you can see what we're talking about. And there's background level, then there's a little higher level, and then there's a higher level, and there's a real high level. And for the real high levels, there's 1, 2. There was
Redcon 4 alerts.
Two.
That's evacuation levels.
There's 2 of them right now.
They're not telling the public.
2 of them at Radcon 4 evacuation level in the United States right now. And they moved east from yesterday. I'll post it right now. We'll be right back with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. You know, Rick, we have members of our class all over the world. And from the moment, actually, I was going to say from the moment I get off the broadcast at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time till 11 o'clock at night, the phone rings nonstop. And actually, that's not true. It starts before I go on the air. And there are very concerned people all over the world. Rick, I've been flattered lately, and I know you've received some of these calls too. I'm very humbled by what's happening. I don't quite understand it.
Well, that's the flow. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. This is when it becomes effortless and you get that response and feedback that says that you're doing what you should be doing. That's self-realization. That is becoming enlightened.
Rick, it's not me. It's all of us at USA Prepares.
They're quickening. I don't want to put it down into that rabbit hole, but guess what? There's a lot of different ways to see what's going on. Do you realize how much knowledge base you personally have increased in just 1 year?
Well,
Last
absolutely.
year you weren't
and
even
I was
talking about geoengineering in terms of structured water and things of that nature. The rapidness of your personal growth curve.
Absolutely, Rick. I certainly do, and I'm humbled by it because I'm involved with some of the most brilliant minds.
You sought them out,
such as you.
You actually planted the seed. You watered it. You nurtured it. You've had me, others, to your home. You know, that is how it works.
Rick, here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. We're getting calls from Europe, from other countries.
I'm doing Hong Kong and Asia. It's unbelievable. That's
what I'm saying. And they are looking at the erosion of their freedoms. And they are looking to us. I'm talking about us on the radio, not just America, but they're specifically pointing at us, Rick, with the hopes, with the desires that we will succeed in restoring liberty in the United States so it can be also restored in Europe.
Yeah,
Rick,
Second Amendment.
This is really humbling.
You know, all of it is important because that was our heritage.
Rick, let me ask you, are you getting the same kind of calls?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Every day.
All right.
In emails, my email traffic has, oh man, I would be lucky. I would have out of 30 emails every day, I would have 18, 20 of them be spam. Now I'm getting 300, and while I have spam in there, the percentage has way down, and these are individuals now wanting personal response from me, and I'm trying to do it. It's overwhelming. And Joey, your email doesn't work, so I have not been able to communicate to you. I needed to say that. Grace, it'll be a pleasure to see you out here visiting us. I'd like to see more people feel like they want to travel and see other parts of the country and how we live. And Vincent, I'm looking forward to coming back this fall. I hope you do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to do, but I really feel what you're doing is important. I really do.
You're talking about the Get Prepared Expo,
yes,
and
yes.
I'm working on that. And I've been encouraged to go to a great big city, and I'm thinking, you know what? I don't know about that because Lebanon is really cool. Yeah. Hey, we'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. We're going to talk about water, and we're going to talk about war. the war plan, the NASA war document. We'll be right back. I'm Vin Finelli. Dr. Richard Alan Miller is with us. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Okay, are we live?
That's the first time in almost 3 years I've seen you do that.
hey, Rick, I'll tell you.
Come on laughing. And when I didn't hear your laugh, I thought, oh my gosh, I guess he got really serious.
Well, well, here's what happened, Rick. I heard the intro to the top of the hour.
You were at your station?
I'm in my studio, in Missouri.
Yeah, well,
and I heard the top of the hour intro. Okay, the show opened, and I was gone. And so I looked at my screen, and I switched tabs, and it showed that I was disconnected. We're having a storm here, and it just knocked me off. Now, I've got all kinds of surge protection, and I've got all kinds of power protection. I've got uninterruptible power. I can ride through the whole broadcast with, on battery backup. I really can. I've got a huge battery bank here, and a real big inverter.
Little John Connor, you.
Anyway, but what happened, Rick, was there was a lightning bolt, and it just knocked me right off the air. So that's what happened. But anyway, I was listening to the top of the hour news, and job cuts, the highest, in May, they were the highest. And so, but a couple of days before, Rick, they were saying how good the economy is. And that's what we've been saying. The mainstream media
does not get it. Does not get it, or something's going down wrong here.
They've been lying to us, Rick. They say it's good, and then a couple of days later they'll say it's bad, or they'll have a jobs report or an economic report for a month ago, and they'll say it was really, really good, and then they'll revise it, and they'll say it's revised downward. And then a month later they'll say, well, actually we re-revised it, and it's a little worse than we said. And then they'll revise it again 3 months later, and they'll say, no, it's pretty bad. And I'm using my terms, but they wouldn't say how bad it was, but they would revise it downward. So they've been lying for years. And I believe, and I've seen firsthand how the media is manipulated. I have seen, I hate to say this, but I've been invited to be on the air, and then just before going on the air, in mainstream media, the interview's canceled. I mean, and no reasons given. It's just I'm sorry, we just canceled it. And then what they do, Rick, is they make an announcement. Well, we were supposed to have Vincent Finelli on the air, and he was unable to make it. Really? I was unable to make it. I'm in the studio, and they call me and say we canceled the interview, and then they report on the air that I was unable to make it. So now people are thinking that Finelli's walking away. That's not the case. They walk away.
I've never seen you walk away from anything.
Now, Rick, General Motors.
Line in the soil. That's right.
On February 21st, we reported evidence mounts that GM delayed a recall with deadly results. We said that there were 6 people that died as a result of this faulty ignition switch problem. Well, at the top of the hour news, we just heard GM fired employees. The CEO, Barra, announced that employees were fired as a result of this faulty ignition switch problem. Now, I know that companies are interested in reducing the costs of products. So I can easily see how this could happen. The boss would say to the engineering team, okay, listen, we can't have that ignition switch. It's too expensive. All right, you guys, figure out how to drop the cost 10%. No, 20%. And I think the discussion would go something like that. And it's not just... It's shock absorbers. It's hinges for the hoods. It's every kind of latch device possible. They've even taken chrome out of bumpers. Not only have they taken the chrome out of the bumpers, they've taken the steel out of the bumpers. And you look at a car today, and you show me a bumper that's made out of metal. I'd like to see one. Really, I'd like to see a metal bumper. Maybe on some pickup trucks, but not on most passenger automobiles. They're plastic. Well, they have taken cost out of these vehicles. They've reduced the weight to get the fuel economy up. But when they are in a wreck, it is a bad situation. So what I'm saying is they fired people, and I'm sure that they've told them to take the cost out of the vehicles, and then they fire them for doing that.
That's your management.
So,
always
right.
having their protection, or the Peter principle.
That's exactly right, the Peter principle.
Oh, now, they are laying chemtrails now, and interestingly, there is a different, there they are. I have 20 aircraft in the air over my town right this moment.
Mm-hmm. Rick, we've got...
Just started, and it's I can't believe it. There are 20 aircraft laying them right back and forth like... I've never seen anything this bizarre. 20 of them at a time.
I've seen as many as 44 chemtrails over the farm at one time, but I haven't seen them lay down that many simultaneously.
20 aircraft are laying it down. I guess they heard me, woke up Portland, and they sent the aircraft down. What do you think? I believe
that these people who...
What it's doing, I have now discovered 5 different kinds of chemtrails. They're done by different agencies. One is military. One is the United Nations, run by some transnational corporations. And one of them is a single company. Did you know that the barium oxide will kill your plants in your garden, but it will not kill GMOs? Did you know that?
Yeah. Yes. We've discussed that at the meetups.
That's crazy.
Well,
remember, I said this about the way Europeans were describing Americans, and you all need to hear this. They said you were ill-informed, ignorant, and complacent.
Rick, you're right on the money, and the word that I keep hearing is naive. Rick, we've got a caller. Jason, what did I do here? Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do it now. Jason, are you on the air with us? Nope.
Sounds like he...
I'll tell you what. Weird things are happening. Okay, so Rick, I have a solution to some of our problems, and here's what it is. I was waiting for the second hour to say this. You know, the police say that they are here to protect us and keep the peace. Well, I submit to our class that it's our job, collectively, yours, mine, and the police, to keep the peace. Now, what if I said that I have drawn a little bit from my experience as a computer system designer from the 1980s and merged that with the technology of the current smartphone? And I have the concept roughly figured out for a smartphone application that will absolutely, positively be a game changer. And I think it is something that we could get programmed. And I'd like to hear from people who would like to be involved in writing the code for this application. I can't do everything myself. But what if I just, if you took me at face value and said, you know what, I actually believe that he's got something, and I'd like to be involved with this. Now, I don't think we're going to be able to make any money on this. Maybe we could make a...
Did I lose you? What happened to you? I dropped off? Oh, okay. I'll just sit here. Is that what you'd like me to do?
to start wars. Our intent is not to start conflict. Our intent is to be peaceful. So I'm calling on every one of you in our class, every one of our instructors listening right now. Do you know someone who is good at writing an application for a smartphone? If you do, we can turn that device that we have mixed emotions about. One, it works pretty neat, works well. We can make phone calls from lots of different places, but yet it's dangerous. We can turn that into a device to keep the peace. And I am not kidding. So I've gotten suggestions and input from others about the rough idea. We fleshed it out. We think it's pretty cool. So if you know someone who can write a simple cell phone application, I'd like to hear from you. Vincent at usaprepares.com. Vincent at usaprepares.com. You can contact me from the website. You can call me. My number's there. It's tough to get through because I'm on the phone a lot. And I'm a one-man band. So please, seriously, consider that. We're going to talk about warfare, the NASA plan, when we get back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Okay, we're back, and we are in the middle of a storm here, and I mentioned that it's raining, and it's been raining for every day except for one for a couple of weeks, and it looks like it's going to be raining for another week at least.
So your water table is up. You're good for water. Is that right?
Water table, yeah, the water table's up, but Rick, there's something really weird going on, and I've never seen this before. It can rain, but the plants, the sun seems to be so hot. The ultraviolet radiation seems to be so strong that the plants can't take the sun. Even with the cloud cover, even with the chemtrails, even
How about
with the...
this, Dot? How about their experimenting with nanobot technology, and they're learning how to change the structure in water so that they can kill certain areas or not, using rain and no rain and storms like the male hurricanes coming up this season?
Rick, it sounds absolutely possible to me. And
Well,
let
that's
me
what
just...
the NASA document is calling for, all of that and more. And it runs it down. That's why the chaos, the universe of chaos in that 4-page thing that I gave you, which was an algorithm on projections of the future, where it showed Fukushima as an extinction event by 2050, according to the NASA documents, that's the time man goes virtual. They've got it down. They've got it down cold. Listen, this is the title of this is Future Strategy Issues Future Warfare.
Example.
Okay, that's a pretty interesting concept. And the actual title is The Bots, Borgs, and Human. Welcome you to 2025. This is a 114-page slideshow. And the slide number 8, this one is really good. How about this one? Spaceship Earth. The crew are plundering the ship's supplies, tinkering with the temperature and life support controls, looking for the instruction manual, engaging in bloody skirmishes in every corner of the vessel, and increasing the size of the crew by 2 million per week. That's page 8.
I'm gonna, Rick.
I'm gonna sit down, buddy.
I'm gonna see if I can make this available on the website by right after the broadcast.
No problem.
Yeah.
Just upload it as a PDF.
Yeah.
And
Right.
by the way, the interesting part is this was put together. There's a list from DOD on down of different participating agencies that wanted this information. Page 9. If I just went down one more. Oh, yeah. Right now, all of the planet humans have taken over and have vastly shortened evolution. It's going to change. That right now, the things like changes don't occur in years anymore. They'll be in months. And you don't think that this next year and the dollar, because of Putin signing with China and Iran and the death knell for the petrodollar, that's where that all goes. And this is all outlined in this thing. It's not about who's going to be the aggressor here. It could be an alien. Listen, wars are no longer about bombs and bullets. It's not. War is not fought like that anymore. And that's what this paper is talking about. Information is no longer about the truth. It's a weapon of war. We used to call it in very naive terms lying by omission, counterintelligence, where you misdirect by giving them the truth, but only a portion of it.
Well, we just gave an example of that during this hour, the second hour.
There you go. You're
where we talked
about the whole picture. And the problem is, when you talk about geoengineering, and isn't it interesting that the chemtrail they're laying in my universe today, this moment, is different than last week in terms of how that aerosol is dispersing and what kind of a cloud. It looks like it's more efficient. It looks like they're getting a better nanobot, creating a better polymer to anhydrate the atmosphere, control plants, control everything.
It's upsetting, Rick. I'm sitting behind the microphone. Sometimes I have to push back. It's so upsetting what they're doing to our planet. Crimes of the highest order. We'll be right back. We've got some challenges here, Rick. We've been knocked off during the commercial announcements, but we're back, and so I just want to let our engineer know that...
I've got better things to tell you right now. I don't know who Clyde Lewis is right now. I've just posted him on the Wartime 2025, The Enemy After Next, Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. And it goes back to the original things I posted when I was at AOL called Secret Weapons for Silent Wars. And it was written about and published in Feral Press in a book called Secret and Suppressed by Feral Press. And the weird part was, what does it mean when I knew 4 of the different people in that book?
Wow.
Yeah, and this is an old book, and the Secret Weapons for Silent Wars. Nobody knew who wrote that. Imagine that. And I published it when it was AOL back in 1992.
Rick, let's say a person drove to a mall, a shopping mall, on a Saturday. And let's say he showed up with a pickup truck, and there are a lot of people at the mall, and it was, kind of a nice day, and people just decided to go visit a mall. And he goes in the back of his pickup truck, and he sets up this apparatus, and he starts spraying this aerosol into the air, and it's like kind of a whitish color. And then just a little while later, it starts snowing or raining in that section of the mall. Now, do you think that somebody, and then people say, wow, it's snowing. This is really weird. Let's leave. Okay, so now they leave the mall. Do you think that the police would show up and arrest this guy with the pickup truck who just created the snow or the rain in a section of the parking lot or over the mall? I think the answer is absolutely yes. They would arrest him for terrorism. Now, why is it that if that were the case, that we are not arresting for terrorism these people who are spraying these chemtrails?
One of the projects is a United Nations project, with 5 different transnational corporations funding it. And when you realize that it's $100,000 to run a jet, a minimum of 1 hour, and, you got 20 of them right now, how much money is that? And for what purpose? And where did the money come from? That's a really interesting thing. You know, the war that's actually going on right now, Seattle passed a minimum wage law of $15 an hour. It happened. It happened 2 days ago up in Seattle. Passed. It's $15 an hour for minimum wage. What do you think it is in India, where they outsource and all these hackers are coming from? Because the NASA document talks about India as a, where the young kids that are getting a far better education than anyone here in this country on computer technology. So I'm encouraging, if you have some friends that know apps, that's how we did Captain. My friend in the Secret and Suppress book was Captain Crunch. I know.
Oh, really?
Michael James Reconasuccio. He used to come into my bookstore and was one of the first people to buy my biofeedback equipment. So I grew up in that universe, and Secret and Suppressed outlines what NASA is now confirming. They used economics. It's not real. Money's not real. It's a theatrical prop. $15 an hour to $2 an hour. There is now no national gross product, and everything that you own is from China. And China now is trying to move into the United States, like the Bundy Ranch and some of those other things that were going on. They're all false flags, and we're being manipulated to the point where we're going to have to pay for our air that we breathe, just like we do water. Privatization of water. It's crazy what's going on. And NASA outlined it. And will you read the way it goes down next? That we're in a revolution with nanobot technology, bioengineering, changing the genome. I mean, where do you think? Man's now in charge, and there is no owner's manual, and they are tinkering with life support. And there are bloody skirmishes going. I mean, it's just the way it laid out. There it is, right now, today. And this was laid out for DOD and the rest of the boys from Brazil.
Rick,
it's not about who is going to be our enemy. It's what?
40 years ago, 4 decades ago, I learned about Captain Crunch. And
he was one of my best friends. He actually came down to visit me before he went into Kansas. He's in a state pen there. He came in to Grants Pass in a van with a gun turret. I couldn't believe it. He had panache.
Rick, okay. We have never talked about this, and you up until I say this, you probably will have no idea that I knew who Captain Crunch.
Well, Michael James Reconasuccio. He was out of Tacoma, and he came into Seattle all the time. Now we are in deep doo-doo, and we need to reconnoiter right now. We need help. And if you have an apps thing that will keep a communication, here's the problem with all of that. Right now, the amount of radiation that you're being exposed to from 10 years ago to today in microwave, radioactivity, high-end gamma ray, all of it has increased 10 times. We've talked about the microwave towers. We've talked about, what one of the vectors is a weapon. What they're doing is creating a waveguide so they can do a Star Wars weapon and have direct access to controlling the weather and the kinds of water that's going into your body. I would say that everybody right now is micro-dehydrated and is going to have a high incidence of illness unless you don't start hydrating your body better. And that's written in stone.
Rick, I don't know where to go. You're absolutely right.
Here's easy water, H3O2, hydrogen peroxide with a third hydrogen atom added on that changes the covalent bonding. What we call this water is the form of water. It's done with microwave. It's a high-end quantum mechanical wavelength, okay, that is the boundary structure in cavitation in water. When you run a missile or a submarine or a bullet through water, a ball is created behind it as a backlash that is basically a torus turning into itself, and is how we now understand cold fusion works. It's H3O2, easy water. There are not 4 phases of water. There are 18. Guess what we've got next to discover? Mars has a different type of structure of water, and we're experimenting with that with the greenhouse production using geodesic domes, one inside the other, pumping it through that slushy ice water that's on Mars to determine whether or not it can be used as a radiation shield for produce. Now, when you use water like that, and the structuring of it, it changes the wavelengths of white light that are going through it. And it has its own relationship to passing information. A guy named Sinclair came out of MIT and is now suggesting that when Earth was first here and a comet hit it, it created a cavitation ball that was a template for DNA, and is why many people refer to water as the way it's God's way of, existing in the world here. There is a very interesting set of information that's going on. I'm using Alex Kavarinen's math right now. He's dead, but he was a Finnan from Finland. Matti Pitkinen and some others are using some of his technology now and are making inroads, like with Gariev on the biohologram. That is, we're going to see the quickening and transhumanism in its weirdest forms shortly. And I'm concerned because basically, like you, I would rather have a more simple life and
absolutely,
chase joy and do my purpose, which I'm doing right now, trying to tell everybody about this, and I'll be your lead scout on how water works and things, as if it's real or not. Right now, I have a concern that geoengineering, one project, is affecting everybody's health, or will be shortly. Your saliva is white. It's not translucent, transparent, or infected or whatever. It's white. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's globular, kind of like being held together because of this polymer that's in everything.
Yeah,
polymer
and Rick,
type of plastic, by the way.
Rick, everybody I know in the Ozark Mountains has got this chemtrail cough.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
the saliva there.
I'm right on it. And by the way, the chemtrails that you're talking about, there are 5 different things going on up there, not just the weapon one. Mm-hmm. That's the creepier part.
Rick, are you still in touch with Captain Crunch?
Yes. Yes. Yes, I know a lot of friends. We came from that very unusual. That's how old I am. He came out of Tacoma. He was the one that did the black and the blue box. For people that don't know, the blue box was 3 tone sounds for nickel, dime, and quarter. Ding, 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 and ding, ding, ding. Yeah,
Rick, I am very familiar with the red box, the black box, and the blue box.
I know, and the red box. They had lots of boxes back then.
Well, and let me tell you this, and I've got to be very, very careful what I say. But Captain Crunch was the first hacker. And he and Abby Hoffman found some holes in the telephone network developed by Bell Laboratories. And they did the research. And let's talk about a little bit about that. I'm going to be really careful what I say when we come back.
Got knocked off, it looks like.
Hey, Rick, I'm here.
Okay, good. I always know you're there at that laugh.
Well, I'm looking at this red. Matt, I'm going to stay on the phone because I'm looking at the bar graph, and it's all red, and then it goes to clear signal. But we keep getting knocked off. I just got knocked off again from high-speed digital. But anyway, I'm on the telephone, and we're going to finish the broadcast this way. Rick, I got to tell you, I was grinning from ear to ear when you mentioned Captain Crunch, and I'm so delighted to find out he's a friend of yours and you can still contact him. Here's why. When I was younger, and we're talking back in the 70s, 40 years ago, I learned about Captain Crunch, and he became someone of interest to me because he figured out how the telephone system worked. And as a result of that, I probably diverted some of the time that I should have spent on serious educational pursuits as defined by the university, and I spent that time looking into really cool technologies like how the telephone network worked as designed by AT&T, Bell Labs, and so forth. And I found out that you could make the telephone network do things that they didn't want you to do. So, for example, if you could generate a single tone of 2,600 cycles per second, and I can even whistle this. It's like this. Boy, my whistler's gone. About that frequency, and I'm sure that's within 10% of what it needs to be. You could, on a long-distance call, blow off that call and redial anywhere you wanted. And if a person wanted to, you could go to the library and look up how the network worked back then, and you could find the codes for, let's place a call internationally. And let's blow
back doors.
You could
how to get into the cookie jar.
I'm going to be very careful how I say this, but a person could call a phone booth in Heathrow Airport from the United States and then turn that call around and send it back up over satellite to, let's say, New York, and then turn that call around and then send it under cable when they had undersea cables. And they only had like 12 to 24 trunks, meaning you could only have 12 to 24 phone calls going under to Europe back then. And you had to call the operator in order to get in line to say, I'd like to make an international call. And they say, okay, what's your number? Okay, we'll call you back when the line's free, and they'd call you back, and then you could place the call. Well, with the codes, you could bypass that entire system, place the calls, and a person could literally tie up the entire communications network of satellite and undersea cable just by knowing how to do it. And so that information was available. And the guys that were involved, like Captain Crunch, who learned how to do that, were called phone freaks, Phreaks, phone freaks. So they learned how to do it, and they were causing a lot of problems for big business, meaning AT&T.
Yeah, and Bell Labs and Sandia and Lucent Technologies and all of those weird corporations that did outsourcing with advanced technologies that were not from Earth, and where they went with them that then became transnational corporations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure the government's listening to this saying, wow, I didn't know he knew that kind of stuff, meaning you and me.
I had a general talk to me yesterday. I've got his name. I think I mentioned it. Had no idea about the hydration format that they're doing to control weather.
Rick, next Thursday, can we focus right on that and just stay right on that topic of hydration?
You've got the links, Renton. You've got them all.
I'll post them ahead of time, and we'll stay on the topics for those links. And I will post, I'll post the Captain Crunch link on the website right now. Hey, Rick, if you can, would you put me in touch with Captain Crunch? Is he in jail?
I'll see what I can do. I'll talk to you about it.
He might be in jail. I'm Vince.
Yeah, he is in prison right now.
He is? Yeah. Anyway, I'm Vincenelli. Dr. Richard Allen Miller has been with us. This is USAPrepares.com. And class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.